Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bar. As always, I'm your host, Timmy Tayo, and today we're going to review the 1-0 defeat against Nottingham Forest. Manchester United 0, Nottingham Forest 1. In a really tight game, a well-contested match that really disappointed from a Man United perspective. When I look at the overall game, there's lots of positives, but also a few negatives to take from the game. Of course, in typical United fashion this season, they concede an early goal. I mentioned the threat of the counterattack in our preview that Nottingham Forest possess, and they've been so potent on the counterattack. And again, we saw that within the first 5 minutes of the game. Our former United player, Anthony Elanga, from a United corner. I feel like we've seen this story before. We've read this book before. We know this script. We have a corner in the opposition half, obviously, and then it turns into a counterattack where the team scores. A beautiful run by Elanga, evading all the United players in his way and then beating Onana. And that was the difference in the game, unfortunately. I can't really recall Nottingham Forest having that many clear-cut chances. Maybe one or two at the end. I think Nico Williams had one towards the end of the game when United pushed and pressed for the equalizer. But outside of that, I think it's safe to say that United controlled the game and are unlucky to come away from the City ground with nothing to show for their efforts. A disappointing result, having waited 2 weeks from the international break, only to come back to another defeat. But like I said, there's a lot to unpack from the game. And I'll start with my first point being what I believe is Amorim's selection mistake. And it comes with not starting Rasmus Højlund. We've talked about it over the last few weeks, especially a striker like Højlund, who's really been on a barren spell for the last few months. And then right before the international break, he gets an assist against Sociedad. He finally breaks his duck and scores a goal against Leicester. He goes away to Denmark, like I highlighted in the previous video, scored a goal against Portugal, hit the Ronaldo celebration, hit the Sioux. And when a player like that is growing in confidence, I don't see how you leave him on the bench. When we look at today's game, like I said, there's a lot of positives, right? We control the game good defensively. We work the ball well into the final third, but there was no striker to finish things off. We know that Xerxes is a 9.5 at best, but he's not a striker. And for Amorim to put Højlund on the bench, knowing that he's just now getting into form, 2 goals and an assist in his last 3 games, I think was a mistake by Amorim to not start Højlund. And that leads into my second point with Amorim's decision to start Garnacho on the left. I think we all know, we can all deduce at this point that Garnacho is ineffective coming from the left-hand side. I talked about it in our last episode as well, how Garnacho seems to have found his feet playing on the right-hand side of the attack. We talked about how that position makes him a little bit unpredictable from what he is on the left, where everyone knows he wants to cut in on his stronger right foot and get a shot off. And it seems like he did that time and time again today. He continuously ignored Dorgu, who overlapped for him, and cut in to either make a bad pass or a shot that went into road Z. But what we've seen from Garnacho on the right, which I believe he started the last 3-4 games on the right, which is how we came up with that conclusion. And even Amorim said it himself in previous games that Garnacho on the right is effective, right? Because as a defender, you don't know what Garnacho is going to do when he's playing off the right. He could take it to the byline and get a cross in. He could cut in on his weaker left foot and get a shot. But either way, as a defender, he becomes unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do. And the game slows down for him. He tends to simplify his moves when he's on the right because it's on a stronger right foot. Even how he receives the ball and how he's able to take that first action into the final third. Everything seems to come naturally on the right-hand side for him. But on the left, like I said, it's so predictable, and he was just ineffective. And again, I think that's a mistake from Amorim to make these changes to what we've seen. Even with Bruno, he's played in that pivot in the last month or so and has been really effective. Goals, assists. But Bruno in the 10, I'm never going to complain about that, right? I mean, he easily could have scored 2 goals today, especially in the first half. The one header that was right at the keeper and even a shot that was well saved. But no qualms with Bruno playing in his most natural position in the 10. But for me, I never want to see Garnacho on the left again. I think we have enough evidence to suggest that he is more effective off the right, and that needs to be his place if he's going to start moving forward. It's a failed experiment on the left. It does not work, and I just don't want to see that again, point blank. All right, we got the negatives out the way. My third point is the fact that I think we saw encouragement in defeat, positives in defeat, reasons for optimism in defeat. Why do I say that? Again, when I look at the team, the structure of the team, defensively, we were brilliant. Outside of that one chance from Elanga that scored the goal and gave them the 3 points, we completely nullified Nottingham Forest. Now, granted, Chris Wood was absent today, injured, and didn't play. But nonetheless, Morgan Gibbs-White was kept quiet. Elanga did cause some trouble in the first half, but I don't really remember any clear-cut chances that they created. Even in midfield, Casemiro had a quiet but solid game, getting the ball forward, starting attacks. And like I said, things just kind of stalled when we got into the attack. But from a defensive standpoint, I think lots of reasons to be positive. And the entire performance, I think, was very good. Of course, the result is not what we wanted, but I think anyone who watched that game today should be reasonably pleased with the performance. Of course, if you continue to have a style of play and perform consistently, the results will come. And for me, I think that's the biggest positive, is if we can maintain this level of performance, yes, cut out the silly mistakes, I think this bodes well from what we're seeing. And that leads into my next point, which is the lack of dark arts that exist in this team. Now, what do I mean by that? We all know what the dark arts of football are, right? It's the tactical fouls. It's the time wasting. In England, they call it shithousery, right? To some extent. And specifically with Elanga's goal. So, like I said, corner kick, the ball is cleared out, lands to the foot of Anthony Elanga. Right away, Patrick Dorgu is right on his heels. In front of him is Garnacho. Now, in that scenario, when I look at the top teams in the league, okay, whether it's a Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, in those situations, they're taking a yellow card and bringing him down in his own half, even at the halfway point. He is getting swiped out. There's no qualms about it. I have no doubt in my mind that if this is a traditional Big Six team, even Aston Villa, they're taking his legs out, and it's called taking one for the team, right? You had 3 players around him, like I said, Dorgu, Garnacho, and Mazraoui. One of those players has to take him out. We all know that he's probably the fastest player on the pitch. I think he's clocked the fastest time in the Premier League at sprint speed this season. You can't win that race. That's a losing battle from the word go. Take the foul. You're not going to get a red card in that position. Again, all the top teams that I've just mentioned would have taken that tactical foul and sacrificed the yellow card for the team. And that is undoubtedly the right call in that situation. I suppose United are just not a top team at this point. That is the reality. But we need to instill some of these dark arts back into the team, into the fabric of the team, to know when to take this tactical fouls. I mean, Arsenal have mastered the dark arts, right? I mean, they know all the plays in the book to get those advantages, and it's something that's missing in this United team. And lastly, the return of Mason Mount. Mason Mount is a player that divides opinion, and rightly so when you look at his injury record. Hasn't been able to stay fit for more than 3-4 games in a row in a United shirt for going on 2 years now. But I'm a big fan of Mason Mount, just like Ruben Amorim. And I know there's a recency bias when you think of Mason Mount, but he's only 25, 26 years old. And if memory serves me right, this is the same Mason Mount that was the 2-time player of the year at Chelsea. In one of those seasons, they won the Champions League. A player that's scored double-digit goals and assists in the Premier League. And so there's a player there. And today, we kind of saw highlights of what he's about. Getting into the box, getting into pockets of space, a quick turn, getting past the player, getting the shot off. I mean, he almost scored with his first touch when he came on the pitch. And if he can stay healthy for the rest of the season, I think that's only going to add more to the attack that we're lacking. Again, that in the final third, that final pass, that final shot was what was missing today, because we created a host of chances. I think it was 22 shots or more against Nottingham Forest today. So clearly there were shooting opportunities, just no striker or no attacking players to really finish off the moves. And I was excited to see Mason Mount return. I think if he can stay fit for the rest of the season, that would only bode well for our misfiring attack and add that extra quality that we're missing, with the likes of Kobbie Mainoo out, with Ahmad out. I think with Mount coming back into the team, he can be that spark in the final third that can turn some of these chances into goals. So not all doom and gloom despite the defeat. I think there's things for Amorim to improve upon. Like I've mentioned, I think just the experience that the team needs to develop with some of those dark arts I talked about, knowing when to take those tactical fouls. I think the overall performance is one that they can build upon. And yeah, I feel encouraged. It's not one of those games that we lost and there's just not much to take out of it. I think when you look at the game overall, United deserved at least a point from this game. Didn't deserve to be on the losing end, but that's football. If you don't take your chances that you create, then you don't deserve to win, flat out. But looking ahead, of course, Man City this weekend in the Derby, and that's going to be critical prior to our biggest game of the season against Lyon next week. And so lots to play for over this next few weeks, as we've talked about. And I'm excited for the run-in. I think if we're going to get players back like Kobbie Mainoo and Mount, and Højlund can get his scoring boots on again, we can have a strong end to the season. So looking forward to that. That's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. Please comment, please like, please subscribe to the channel. And thank you for your time, and catch you on the next one. Cheers.